Alright, so a bit of context before this video begins. This was a school project from last year. I've always been interested in the idea of, is school actually useful for the future? Of course, that's very vague. It branched out to alternative schools and different motivations behind learning in general. Been wanting to do further research on it. This is definitely my favorite school project of all time, ultimately. I've been wanting something like this for years and just never got to it, and was really excited when this was announced. This was from May and decided to release it now, finally. The reason I love this project so much is because there's not much directed towards it, other than to simply just research something that you're interested in. I wanted to find a way to incorporate my topic with how this project is successful, which is shown by the intrinsic motivation behind this, as well as with the deadline. There was really not necessarily a deadline. We were given it at the start of the year and didn't have to turn it until the very end of the year. And we could present it however we felt like. So I made a video for it, which again proves my exact point. How did I make an 11-minute video about statistics? Intrinsic motivation. But anyways, really proud of this video and hopefully you enjoy it. Thanks for joining me today. I'm your host. Today we're talking about alternative schooling besides conventional in the United States of the North American region. Now, the original question I was attempting to answer, is school efficient in any way? Now, this branched on to the definition of school. It's just a building where you receive education. So this kind of sprung the idea of looking for other types of schooling and then comparing it to conventional. The question is so vague. And then where? There's probably a bunch of other schools somewhere else in the world that exist. So let's just make it easy and put it in the United States. The answer to the question, why do I have to go to school, is generally always because it is legal not to, or so you can learn. But a misconception is that there's only one singular type of method. The first thing that people generally think of when they hear the word school is the typical conventional school system. However, there are many different alternative methods and schools all around the United States that can vary greatly. The idea of alternative education is categorized into two types: alternative methods and alternative schools. This isn't official, rather something I just compared. Teaching methods are alternative education in your everyday life, not in specified buildings like alternative schools. This idea is mainly different variations of homeschooling, but this should be shown what the differences are between them. One of the biggest differences which separate different schooling methods from each other is intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Two types of motivation which can determine how well a project can turn out. A public or conventional school generally has extrinsic motivation. And if you wanted an example, take projects. You have a set date to finish the project, not for the desire to actually do it, but because it is assigned and has to be turned in by a certain time. It is what you receive in the end, your grade, or an outside demand, which is why you may not get a lot from it if you are not motivated by what you're actually doing, but instead, what you're going to receive in the end, or something that will happen because of what you're pursuing, which is why people who ask questions are statistically more likely to succeed than people who know they will and set their mind to it. This is shown by a study by the University of Illinois. 50 participants were asked to complete anagrams or rearrange words to configure new ones, and asked them all to either spend a minute wondering if they could complete a task or spend a minute deciding that they will do it. They showed more success asking themselves if they would be able to do it. This is shown in the first experiment that they did. The next 3 experiments that they did suggest that writing will I instead of I will as part of a supposedly unrelated handwriting task produced better anagram solving performance and stronger intentions to actually do it. So intrinsic motivation is an internal motivation, something you actually enjoy in the moment. If you can motivate yourself, then you are more likely to learn more, not just academically. Anyways, I think it's time for a short commercial break. Cue that. Alright, so I'm back now, and I want to talk about what a Sudbury school is. And I think that this paragraph on the Sudbury School's curriculum page shows exactly what it is. Sudbury School students choose how they learn, what their educational environment is like, and how they are evaluated. They choose their curriculum and method of instruction, and often choose when they are evaluated. They often evaluate themselves. They also choose who to interact with and when. This is radically different from any other type of schooling. Many people compare that most people would have no motivation to learn in a Sudbury school when given the option to do essentially nothing. However, people naturally want to learn, and if they actually want to learn, then this changes everything. People would never learn to walk in the first place if this kind of self-motivation didn't exist. They choose through a democratic process completely how their environment operates, which also means that essentially a staff member has the same authority as a child. In my opinion, the most important type of alternative school. And because this is in the United States, there's a few alternative schools that can vary greatly from state to state because of state requirements. For example, if the schools are actually legal in different states, a form of homeschooling called unschooling is very similar to what a Sudbury school wants to say. Essentially, just go through your everyday life, just learning from your interests, which end up leading to the subjects we learn in conventional schooling, except they don't consider them subjects. Science, history, or mathematics, basically anything that has already interested people before we are forced to learn it. They learn by going through their everyday life, which means that they learn from things they want to do. For example, watching sports or playing video games as much as that. Students can look at the statistics on these things and learn to read, kind of. Choosing what you learn can help and also move away from certain classes such as art or music. These classes should be tried but not forced for a grade. Creativity definitely helps school. If you are actually interested, then it helps a lot more. But forcing someone into doing something they aren't willing to enjoy or pursue is unnecessary. Which is why choosing to do one of these subjects and or actually continuing to do it at a higher level definitely enhances school. As I said, it's pretty similar to Sudbury schools and is illegal in all 50 states. But of course, some of the specific requirements can vary. Alright, so we're coming up to another commercial break, but coming up we have homeschooling, we have charter schools, and we have random ranting. Wasn't that thrilling? Alright, so next I have charter schooling. Charter schools are very inconsistent and vary greatly from state to state. Alright, popping in the middle of the video, never really explained this. This is because state laws don't require charter schools to follow a particular instructional method. And as a whole, they aren't really any better or any worse than conventional schooling in academics. Charter schools are government funded, which means they are funded by the state, and they are just independently run by a singular group of people. A study of 26 states suggests that charter schools have made modest gains in performance in comparison to public schooling. This is shown by Stanford University. Of the 26 states, which basically account for 95% of charter schools, they aren't performing any better, if not worse, than regular public schools. This is suggested by standardized tests across the states between math and reading. Nationwide, 25% of charter schools show significantly better gain in reading than their traditional school counterparts. The other 75% either showed no difference at all, not stronger or weaker really, and then the other was significantly lower or weaker than traditional schools. Authorizers that really don't need to be running a school and don't have a ton of responsibility when it comes to that can make it into that position. And I know this pretty well because I was in a charter school last year that got multiple lawsuits because the school board wasn't too great. Alright, homeschooling, the most popular type of schooling method. Usually conducted by a parent or tutor, the Supreme Court has ruled that parents have a fundamental right to direct the education that their children get. So how effective is homeschooling in comparison to conventional schools? A homeschool report study done in 2009 suggests that from 11,700 participants through all 50 states and 15 independent testing services, including Guam and Puerto Rico, It shows overall that homeschooling students outperform conventional school students by about 37 points in standardized tests. This is also including unschooling, because this is considered another type of homeschooling. Another idea I found is called Freedom to Choose, from a program called Home Life Academy, or HLA. It suggests that parents can completely choose the curriculum based on their beliefs and what they want to teach. They call this goal-based education. It is based on each student's individual goals for their future. They want parents to help build on that plan and to help build on students' strengths and talents. Goal-based education allows for flexibility, and this was only one of the homeschooling programs I've found. However, homeschooling isn't an option for everybody. This is considering the amount of people who don't have time considering various other responsibilities, or maybe they aren't educated enough, or maybe they're just terrible parents, or maybe they're dead. I just wanted to take that into consideration. So how do you decipher which schools are more useful? That all comes down to an opinion. If you were to look at the majority, it can be inconsistent because of the majority's response. You are 100% of your opinion. I think that a single person with thoughts of their own should choose their education. Alright, I've been your host, Humongous, and maybe public schooling should take my human rights into consideration. Instead, I know my stages of my rocks.